All right, welcome to a very special episode of Mike's Money Picks. We are taking a break from the normal daily fantasy talk. We're not going to be talking DFS on DraftKings and FanDuel today. We have a bracket to talk about, and this is one of my favorite shows of the year to do. This is our annual bracket breakdown show where we are going to take a look at the 2025 March Madness bracket, tell you everything you know about this bracket, tell you what you can do to win your bracket pools, and give you some advice and some picks out. So that way, if you're playing any sort of bracket pool, if you're making any bets on this NCAA tournament, we're going to have you guys covered with all the information that you're going to need. And to more articulately do this, I bring on a guest. I think when you really look at something big like an NCAA tournament bracket, I think if you're evaluating it with one mind, I think that is not a winning mindset. So I always like to discuss it with somebody. So I brought on somebody who is very much informed on college basketball, watches a ton of college basketball, understands statistics, understands probability, and knows how to talk about it. And that is my dad, Kevin. Dad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Mike.
We do this every year. Very much love bringing you on. Very much love getting you on here. Like, honestly, when it comes to like breaking down the March Madness field, I really think that both of us like check all the boxes, right? Like both of us know ball, both of us understand statistics and probability, and both of us know how to explain it. So I really think this is going to be a good show. Really looking forward to it. So this is not going to be a show where we go region by region and just talk about all 64 games. That would be excruciatingly boring. I don't think anybody wants to listen to that. So we're going to kind of hit a few different topics, a few different things that you can look into to kind of help fill out your bracket and help make your picks. All right. So the first thing I want to do, this is all the rage right now. I want to talk about conferences because, with conference expansion, we're seeing some kind of different iterations of these conferences, some different kind of setups for how these conferences got selected for the NCAA tournament. So the biggest story in college basketball is the SEC right now. And the SEC got 14 teams into the NCAA tournament. So the SEC is very clearly the best college or the best conference in college basketball. But does that mean that you should pick SEC teams to win your bracket in the NCAA tournament? Well, Dad, what do you think about the SEC?
I think the SEC is outstanding. I'm all in. You've got four teams in the top 6 in KenPom. I think they've got a really good chance of getting 2 teams in the Final Four.
I would agree with that assessment as well. So the thing with the SEC is we have simply never seen a conference get this many teams in an NCAA tournament before, right? The previous record was the Big East back in 2011, the legendary Kemba Walker year, and they got 11 teams in that NCAA tournament, right? And the SEC this year with 14, that's 3 more. So what I wanted to look at was I wanted to go see, hey, when the Big East got those 11 teams in, how did they do? Well, obviously you have UConn, the national champion, but 4 of those 11 teams lost in the round of 64. 5 of them lost in the round of 32. Now, in fairness, 2 of which were to Big East opponents because those 2 Big East teams, Marquette and UConn, made it to the Sweet 16, and Marquette lost in the Sweet 16. UConn won the national championship. So just because the Big East was like the best conference of all time that year, didn't mean success for a lot of the teams in the Big East. It did mean success, though, for the best team in the Big East that year, which was UConn. So I'm kind of a mindset right now where I think I'm going to be all in on the top of the SEC. I think those 4 teams at the top are really, really good in the SEC. Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, and Alabama. But I really think the middle of the SEC, I think some of these teams might be a little bit overrated. Some of these teams might have a little bit of an elevated perception. And so I'm going to be looking to fade and pick against the Missouris and the Mississippi States of the world. That's where I'm at. What do you think about that middle and kind of bottom tier of the SEC?
I would tend to agree with you. I mean, if you look at Missouri, number 73 in defense, that's horrible. They're going to basically have to outscore you to win, and that doesn't always happen in the tournament when you're playing a lot of elite defensive teams. So, I mean, I definitely don't see them doing anything. Oklahoma's another one I don't love. I don't know where they're at on here. 38.
They are 38th in KenPom right now.
Again, they're 70th in defense, and if you look at that, some of those metrics, there's a lot of red on that defensive
yes, there
side
is.
in terms of turnovers and offensive rebounds. They give up a lot of free throws. I could see them being a quick exit. Arkansas as well. they're the kind of the opposite. They play decent defense, but they can't score.
So I am right there with you on Missouri and Oklahoma. And both those teams are kind of coming into the NCAA tournament in a little bit of a slump, which is not a good sign. And both of those teams aren't quite healthy. You know, Missouri's dealing with an injury to their big man, Mark Mitchell. Oklahoma's dealing with an injury to their big man, Sam Godwin. And so coming into the NCAA tournament, not at full strength when you've already got some question marks on your resume, not exactly a good sign. Yeah. And also, by the way, when we are mentioning rankings, I should have mentioned this at top for all novices out there. We're referencing KenPom.com, which is the premier college basketball data site. They have a lot of tools that are free. We are premium subscribers, so we have some additional ones. But when we reference rankings, that's what we're using. And KenPom very rarely lets you down.
I believe it's $19.99 for a subscription, and if you're a college basketball fanatic, it's well worth the $19.99. There's so much data in there that you can drill down.
Especially if you're looking to bet on games or play DFS on DraftKings and FanDuel, which I do on a daily basis. It's a must-have source of data. So now let's move on to an entirely different conference. This conference has been getting all the rage lately. And I mean rage in terms of anger, not rage in terms of like hype. The ACC. People are mad about the ACC getting 4 teams in this NCAA tournament, most notably North Carolina, which to me, like... So KenPom views North Carolina favorably. They're 33rd on there, which is higher than the other bubble teams. The resume for North Carolina, not all that great, but to me, it's kind of hard to ignore the fact that North Carolina, their athletic director's the committee chairman. Like, that just seems a little bit of a conflict of interest to me. Is there a team you would have taken over North Carolina for this tournament?
Yeah, definitely. West Virginia. And ironically, if you follow Bracket Matrix, which is it's a site that consolidates 110 bracketologists, West Virginia was on every bracket in that on that matrix and somehow did not manage to get in.
First in history.
The KenPom rating is not great, but they've got a very solid record and a good Q1, Q2 record. They were probably the one that surprised me the most.
I would agree with you on that. I really was surprised to see West Virginia left out. So now that we have a bracket, though, just because nobody wanted them in the tournament doesn't mean that North Carolina is just going to show up and lay down. Doesn't mean that they're just going to show up and play poorly. So do you think that North Carolina or any of these other ACC teams are going to go on a run in this tournament?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, all 4 of these teams could potentially make the Sweet 16.
I agree.
Louisville is grossly underseeded. You know, they've got a rating of 23.
23 on KenPom,
which would have them as a 6 seed. I believe they're an 8 or a 9.
They're an 8 playing Creighton is the 9.
Yeah, and I don't think much of. To be honest, I don't think much of Creighton. So I think Louisville gets past Creighton. Carolina, for as much controversy as they have, they get by San Diego State. There's some winnable games in that bracket for them.
There is, because it's Ole Miss is the 6th seed, and I mean Ole Miss. I love Chris Beard. I think he's a heck of a coach, but that team is not a very talented team. Like, there's not a whole lot of NBA talent on that team. And then you've got Iowa State waiting in round 2, and that's a team that's playing without their second best offensive player.
Yeah.
So North Carolina, if you get by San Diego State, like, they could really prove everybody wrong. And there really is power in being that us against the world, nobody believes in us team. And they could absolutely be that. I mean, it worked for Kevin Keats and NC State last year, right? Like,
well, go back to 2022. I think it wasn't Carolina was like a 9 seed.
I believe they were either an 8 or a 9.
They were an 8 or a 9, and they ended up in the national championship game.
Yeah.
They have Final Four level talent. They just haven't put it together. So, I mean, you want to talk about somebody that could make a run. As much controversy as there's been, I can think of several situations where teams like North Carolina this year, you know, UCLA a few years back made a Final Four run from the first 4. VCU made a Final Four run.
And people forget
Syracuse has made some deep runs in seasons that people thought they had no business being in the tournament. So
it's always Syracuse.
I would watch out for Carolina. I really would.
Yeah, Syracuse has done that like twice, like, or maybe even 3 times. Like, every time Syracuse is a bubble team, they always get in and they always win 2 or 3 games. It's annoying. But yeah, so another stat that I looked up. So in terms of expected wins over the last 5 years, do you know which conference actually has the biggest gap between their actual wins and their expected wins, the most overachieving conference? You care to guess who that is?
Oh man.
Give you a little hint. We're talking about them right now.
ACC.
It's the ACC.
Yeah.
Last year they got 3 teams into the Elite Eight with NC State, Clemson, and Duke. So don't write off the ACC just because this was a down year in this conference. Just because people are mad about North Carolina getting included, do not count out this conference winning some games. I will stand by that. I think that we're likely to see each of these 4 ACC teams win their round of 64 game.
Yeah, and like I said, it's conceivable all 4 of them make the Sweet 16.
I agree.
I can see it, but it's conceivable.
So now, there's one more conference I want to talk about, and it's because I have beef with this conference. It's the Mountain West. So basically, the Mountain West, they've been historically really bad in the NCAA tournament. Last year, no Mountain West team won their round of 64 game except for San Diego State and Utah State. But Utah State was bounced in the round of 32 by Purdue. The year before, where San Diego State made the national championship game, no other team in the Mountain West won their round of 64 game. You can just go back on and on. The Mountain West is eternally a underachieving conference in the NCAA tournament. I am very much considering this year just blindly picking against every Mountain West team. Is there a reason I should not do that?
No, exactly. In fact, my exact comment about that conference is all the teams that got in are 40 KenPom or lower.
Correct.
Which means, in theory, they should be in the bottom half of the bracket. And it's very possible they're all gone by the end of the first round.
Yeah, so we're both on board there. We're going to be pretty much fading. Now, I do think there's some scenarios you might want to pick a Mountain West team. Like, I could see New Mexico or Colorado State winning. I could see it.
I like Colorado State. I think Colorado State can make a run.
Okay, so
despite their, the KenPom is a little misleading because they played much better the second half of the year. I think if you look at Bartorvik and you go from February 1st on, they're like number 18 in the nation. So. Mm-hmm. They're a team to watch out for, and they should actually be favored against Memphis per KenPom.
Yeah, they're probably going to be first round favorites as a 12 over a 5 against Memphis, which is not something you see every day. So that would be the one I could see.
That's the only one I don't think San Diego State is going to be able to control the pace against Carolina.
I do not either.
And I think they may get run out of the gym. If they don't control the pace, they're going to be in trouble because they like to play really slow, and Carolina likes to play really fast.
Yes, it's huge contrast of styles in that game. So before we talk about bracket pool specifically, is there any other conference you wanted to talk about as a conference as a whole?
I faded the Big Ten.
Okay, tell me why.
I like Michigan State. I think Michigan State's good. They've overachieved. They're a typical Izzo team.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like anybody else in that league. They've all got flaws. Michigan turns the ball over way too much. Maryland can't win close games. And Purdue just they've been bad of late.
Well, Purdue doesn't play any defense. That's my problem.
No, they're not, they haven't adjusted to life without Zach Edey. And if you look at that, there's a lot of red at the bottom of that bracket where they only won 3 out of their last 9 games.
Yeah, they've lost 6 of their last 9.
They're not playing well at all. I don't think. Yeah, they're 63rd in the country defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they look. It wouldn't shock me if they fell to High Point in the first round.
Mm-hmm. So the one, I'm going to talk at length about Michigan later. A little bit of a teaser there for you. I'm kind of in on Maryland because I do think that those 4 games that they've lost, their last 4 losses have all been by buzzer beaters. And so what if those shots had not gone in? What would our perception of this Maryland team be? I think that they could very easily be a 2 or a 3 seed if that had been the case. And then Wisconsin, I will kind of ride with Wisconsin a little bit here. I think Wisconsin has a very easy pathway in this NCAA tournament. I don't really see Wisconsin getting threatened, at least until the Sweet 16, and I actually like their matchup in the Sweet 16 if it is Alabama.
Yeah, they're a reasonably decent balanced team, top 30 offense and defense. So,
and they've got a star in John Tanjay as well. That guy can hoop. Like he does everything well offensively. He can take it to the rack. He can shoot. Like I think Wisconsin would probably be the Big Ten team that I would be most willing to ride with. All right, so now Well, let's switch it up a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about what probably a lot of the people came here for, which is bracket pools, right? So I want to talk a little bit about the math. I am a high school math teacher, so I got to talk a little bit about math here, right? I got to talk about how math can help you win your bracket pool, right? So the biggest thing that I think people understand when it comes to bracket pools, and I think we kind of in our show last year missed the boat on this because, everything tends to be reactive from year in, year out, right? And so 2 years ago, we had 4-seed UConn win where nobody won, like nobody had the national champion. Nobody had UConn when they were a 4-seed. And so the way you had to win your bracket was by getting everything else right, right? But now, especially last year when UConn won as an overwhelming favorite, if you want to win a bracket pool on ESPN or Yahoo or CBS or anything like that, you better get the national champion right. Because the way the scoring works, the national champion is literally worth one whole round of first-round games. So last year, I had honestly such a bad bracket through 2 rounds, but I had Purdue as my national champion. I would have been winning some money if Purdue happened to beat UConn on the national championship game. So you really have to get this national championship right if you want to win a big-time bracket pool. Do you agree with that statement or anything else you want to add?
Yes, I agree with that, but I would add to it my advice, and it certainly wouldn't have worked last year, is don't pick someone other than the overwhelming favorite to win.
I agree.
In this case, it's Duke unless Cooper Flagg injuries is serious.
Right.
But if you pick Duke, you're going to compete. You're competing with probably 50% of people in your bracket who are going to pick Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Only 25%.
So the screen I'm showing right now, if you're watching us on YouTube, is ESPN has a screen that's called Most Picked Champions. ESPN used to have this Who Picked Whom screen that would show you for every round who was like what percentage. It was the best. I don't know why they got rid of that page.
They did away with that. Oh,
yeah. It's annoying. I wish they still had it. Yeah. So anyway, this page is called the Most Picked Champions, where you can see who is being picked as the champ in brackets. Now, what you got to remember is not every single bracket is filled out with the intent to actually win. It's how you have, let's see, Grand Canyon winning in 0.1% of brackets, right? So you can inflate these numbers a little bit if you're playing an actual serious bracket pool. Yeah. But Duke's at 25%. So that's fairly high, but what that means is if you pick Duke, you're likely competing against everybody else who picked Duke, so that if Duke wins the national championship, it does not mean that you're automatically winning your bracket pool.
No, exactly.
Now, what I will add to that is, say you are sitting there, well, dang, Mike, you're telling me not to pick Duke. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is understand leverage. So I know that if I pick Duke, I've got to beat everybody else who picked Duke. And so what I need to be looking at is, okay, who can I have in the national championship game against Duke that's going to be different from other people? Then who can I have in the Final Four against Duke and the other side of the bracket as well that's going to be different from other people? You have to get leverage somewhere. So if you're not going to get leverage with your national champion, which is the easiest thing to do, then you need to get leverage at some of the later rounds of your bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you are curious, anything else to add on bracket pools before we move on, Deb?
My only other comment was look at the metrics. Be careful with your eye test.
Mm-hmm.
Eye tests can be very small sample sizes, and they can be dead wrong if you watch the team on their best day or their worst day. So, always double check yourself with some sort of metrics to say, hey, is that team, does this agree with what I saw and what I believe about this team?
100%. And I think that goes no matter how much college basketball you've watched. I watch a ton of college basketball every single night. I haven't watched every team play every single game.
Yeah.
So I don't I've watched every Texas game, but that doesn't mean that I know exactly what's going to happen for every single team in the bracket just based off of what I saw. So you're 100% right on that.
Yeah.
Because if you were to watch a team like Kentucky on one of their bad nights, you would think, holy crap, how is this team going to win a game in the tournament? But if you watch Kentucky on a good night, you'd think, holy crap, this team could go all the way.
Exactly.
All right. So when it comes to bracket pools, if you would like to be in our bracket pool, we do have one. We're both going to be in it. If you would like to be in it, reach out to me, DM me on some sort of social media. I'm doing collecting money for it, so it's got to be a little bit official. I'm not just sending out the link and letting people join. If you want to be in it, DM me some form of social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Discord, whatever. If you want to be in it, let me know. I can get you the link. I can let you know how to get in. But if you want to compete against us, it is a paid bracket pool, and we do reward first round and second round winners. So it's not just a lump sum goes to the winner at the end of the bracket pool. Now, if you know ball and you're able to pick first round and second round games, you can win some money along the way. So it's not just a lottery of who gets the national champion. Right. All right. So now let's go ahead and, like I said, we're not going to pick all 64 games because that just wouldn't be good. We're going to go through a few categories, right? And those categories will just give you a really good lay of the land, let you know how you can fill out your bracket in a variety of ways, right? So the first category we're going to talk about is who the first one seed to lose is. Because I got to be honest, Deb, these one seeds to me are where this NCAA tournament is going to live or die. These are 4 of the best one seeds of all time. KenPom has been ranking teams since the end of the 1990s. They very rarely have a team over 35 on KenPom is their net rating. There's been 4 of them every other year before this year. All 4 of these one seeds are over 35 on KenPom right now. So we have a dominant crop of one seeds. So the question is, when are they going to lose and who are they going to lose to? So, Dad, who do you think the first one seed to lose is going to be?
I've got Auburn.
Okay.
I think they're not playing their best ball right now.
Mm-hmm.
And Louis, I'm not going to say it's going to happen here, but Louisville is a very underseeded 8 seed.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should be probably more like a 5 if I remember correctly, based on their KenPom ranking. So I think that's going to be a tougher game.
Yeah, Louisville is 23rd in KenPom. That would be right on track with 5 or 6.
And also Clemson is looking at the Sweet 16, Clemson is a team that's capable of beating anyone. They beat Duke. They're one of the few teams to beat Duke. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm going on that. I really like Houston, but man, having to play Gonzaga who's a top 10 KenPom team as an 8 seed in the second round, that is a really tough draw.
So that is actually a perfect segue in because I am calling my shot right now. I think Gonzaga beats Houston in the round of 32. That's my bold prediction for this NCAA tournament. I just see Gonzaga, right? And you look at their KenPom profile, they're 9th overall. So like this is not an 8 seed. This is not a normal 8 seed. And you look at how Houston wins games. Houston wins games because they're really big, they're really strong, they're really physical, and they dominate the glass. Gonzaga is another team that's really big, really physical, really experienced, and Gonzaga rates out really well on both sides of the ball in terms of rebounding. Houston's not going to be able to win the way they normally win against Gonzaga. They're going to have to actually generate points off their first shot as opposed to second chance points. And Gonzaga is a really good offensive team that's going to be able to score against Houston. So I just really see this being a situation where Gonzaga matches up perfectly with Houston, that they're a poor seed, they're a poor matchup, and I'm calling it right now. Gonzaga is going to beat Houston in the round of 32.
It's definitely possible.
So I will say, other than that, I have a hard time picking against the one seeds. Like, and honestly, I'll be totally honest with this. It looked heading into the bracket like I thought Gonzaga was probably going to be a 7, but could have been an 8 or a 9. And I had really thought, wow, if they're the 8 against Houston or the 7 against Tennessee, I would really like to pick them. And sure enough, they end up in a region where they're the 8 against Houston, and then guess who's on the bottom half of that bracket? Tennessee. So
where are those games being played?
The Houston game?
Yeah, is it Wichita?
I believe that is a Wichita game. I can look that up.
Okay, so it's not super close for Houston.
No, it's not a big home field advantage game. Yes, it is in Wichita, Kansas. So it's not like they're playing in Houston or Dallas or somewhere where they get all their fans. All right, so now we talked about one seeds. Obviously, we're not picking any one seeds to lose in the round of 64. That would be heinous. But let's talk upsets, though. So who is your best upset call for round 1? This is a team that they don't have to make the Sweet 16. They don't have to go beyond that. But who's your team that you're picking in round 1 that's a big-time upset?
I've got 12 Colorado beating 5 Memphis.
Okay, tell me why.
I wouldn't be. Ken Palm gives Colorado State. Excuse me, I said Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Ken Palm gives Colorado State a 55% chance to win that game. So it wouldn't surprise me if they end up the betting favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Memphis is just kind of piddled around with weak teams all year, and they barely win a lot of games on Sunday afternoons.
They're always on Sunday
against teams that are just not that great. So I just don't think that I'm just not high on them. And Colorado State, like I said, if you look at Bartorovic's rating since February 1st, they would be number 18 overall.
That's pretty good.
So, and they play solid. They're good. If you could pull Colorado State up again,
I can do that.
They're relatively balanced.
Mm-hmm.
Top 50 offense, top 50 defense. They were there last year. They've got tournament experience. I think that's the one I feel the best about.
Yeah, I'm backing you on this. I think the Colorado State's live to pull off the upset here, if it even ends up being a betting upset, because Memphis, their second best player, Tyrese Hunter, is currently in a walking boot. And, I've had my fair share of injuries. I would have a tough time playing 30 minutes in an up and down basketball game 3 days from now if I was in a walking boot. Right? That. So if Memphis is without their second best player, the metrics already favor Colorado State. I love that upset call, Colorado State 12/5. I'm going to go a little bit different, though. All right. I'm going to go a little bit bigger game hunting here. I'm not going to go super big. I'm going to go with High Point over Purdue as my upset pick. Reason why: High Point is a really good offensive team. I've watched this team play a few times.
Mm-hmm.
They're 25th in the nation in offensive efficiency on KenPom. They're really well coached by Alan Huss. He's a name to look out for all these high major coaching job openings. They run a lot of really good sets with really good spacing. They get really good shots. That's why their offense rates so well. It's not because they have some superstar offensively. It's because they're really good at offensive basketball. And Purdue is not a good defensive basketball team. Like you mentioned earlier, they're still struggling to adjust to life without Zach Edey. Basically, last year, Purdue, you could let your guards get driven by, right? And Zach Edey would just be at the rim waiting to just block out the sun. This year, they don't have that. They don't have that rim protector. And their guards are still getting blown by. So I think this is a really good matchup for High Point. I think High Point is going to be able to score with them. And one thing that I really liked about what I saw from High Point is when the game went south, no pun intended, in the Big South tournament against Winthrop, they went to a full court press. They went to a bench lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And they totally changed how they played. They switched up the style. They switched up the tempo of the game, totally flipped that game around. And they went from down 18 to winning by 12. So this is a team that can win in a variety of ways. And I think that they're going to figure out how to do it against Purdue.
And apparently a lot of bettors like them too, because that line's moved 3 points since they opened it.
Yeah,
that's 10.5, and it's now 7.5. So apparently, a lot of people like. I like them as well. They're very good. They're a very good offensive team. Purdue's not a good defensive team, and Purdue kind of lives and dies by the 3-point shooting on their guards. And if they're not hot, it could be a long night. Plus, other than last year, they've got a propensity for getting beat in early rounds.
Yeah, so, that's very true.
I think that's a good one.
All right, so now I will say I'm not gonna pick this in my bracket. I'm not going to bet this team to win outright. I might bet them to cover the spread, though. I kind of like Robert Morris going up against Alabama. And big reason why Alabama could be playing this game without their second best player, Grant Nelson. Robert Morris is a team that's pretty good defensively. They're really good on the glass. And they have a few guys offensively that can really hurt you. And I just kind of like the idea of, Bama's this really good shooting team that takes a lot of threes. What if Bama has an off night? What if not having Grant Nelson has an impact? And what if Robert Morris is just a little bit better than people think? I think Robert Morris could cover the spread. I'm not bold enough to pick it, but I think Robert Morris could surprise some people and cover that spread.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now let's talk about a trend that has happened in the NCAA tournament in most seasons, actually, dating back to when the bracket expanded. 2 years ago, we had Princeton in the Sweet 16. 3 years ago, we had Iowa State and Miami in the Sweet 16. Last year, we had the NC State Wolfpack in the Sweet 16. What all those teams have in common? They were double-digit seeds entering the Sweet 16. So who is a likely double-digit seed that you could see in the Sweet 16 this year, Dad?
I got a couple. Colorado State, as I mentioned earlier, I like them against Memphis. I think they've got a decent shot against Maryland. VCU is another one.
Okay, sell me on VCU.
They're top 30 Ken Pom.
Mm-hmm.
That game is, I think, pretty close matchup on Ken Pom. They just bully you. I mean, they're gonna get up in your face. If the game is not officiated, if the referees let them play, they can be extremely aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And just a very good defensive team. And they've only lost one game, I think, out of their last 15, maybe.
Yeah, it was to your Dayton Flyers.
Yes, it was.
So looking at the numbers while you were talking, VCU 23rd nationally in defensive efficiency. That's really good. And according to Ken Pom, if they were to play Wisconsin in round 2, Wisconsin would only be a 5-point favorite in that game.
Yeah.
So it's not some monumental upset. If VCU gets by BYU, it would not be a huge upset to see them beat Wisconsin.
Well, and if I remember last day, BYU faced the A-10 champion last year in Duquesne, and it didn't go too well for them either. So
that is correct. Very similar stylistically too. Duquesne, another team that's going to slow it down and be physical.
Exactly.
All right, so I'm going to go a little bit off the board here. I've got one that kind of gets an asterisk. Okay, well, we're going to do that one first. This one gets an asterisk. I'm biased because I am a fan of this team, but I think the Texas Longhorns can make it to the Sweet 16. I really do. I think that they drew a perfect situation where as long as they get by Xavier, which is a game that we will be at, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
As long as they get by Xavier, Illinois and Kentucky are like the two biggest Jacko and Hyde teams in this tournament. They both take a lot of threes. They both are, Illinois is not statistically good at shooting them. And Kentucky, they're down some of their guards. Like, if Texas gets this Illinois team on an off shooting night and then gets Kentucky not at 100%, who, by the way, they've already beaten Kentucky, I think that shapes up really well for the Texas Longhorns, who, oh, by the way, have a guy who's going to be drafted in the top 10 in the NBA draft in June, in Trey Johnson. He's one of the best players in this tournament. And I really think that Texas, perfect draw as long as they can get by Xavier.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that Texas Xavier game is going to be a good one. It's just 50 miles up the road from Xavier's campus. So I would imagine you're going to have a lot of Musketeer fans in the arena.
Yeah, probably going to be a very pro Xavier crowd, unfortunately.
Ironically, I think those teams are ranked right next to each other in Ken Pom.
They are 42 and 43. 43 and 44.
It's almost a dead even. If you look at their net ratings, they're almost dead even. So it would be a pick 'em game by the net ratings. But yeah, I think that I agree. I think there's a definite chance there. I'm not impressed with Illinois, and Kentucky's hurting, and they're very inconsistent.
And to add one more,
North Carolina.
Yeah, to add one more thing on that, we both kind of like North Carolina as well. This ties in perfectly. A first 4 team has won an NCAA tournament game, and every year that the first 4 has been in existence, except for one in 2018. So basically, once we get to Thursday morning, no matter who it is between Xavier, Texas, Carolina, San Diego State, it's more likely than not that one of those 4 teams is going to win a game.
Yes.
All right, so now I'm going to go really outside the box here, although maybe it's not even outside the box at all. My other double-digit seed to make the Sweet 16 is UC San Diego. So I really like this team, the Tritons, which is one of the coolest mascots. I don't know what the heck a Triton is, but that's what makes it cool. Basically, this is a team that they have really beat up on their own conference. Now, if you're sitting there saying, well, why does it matter that they beat up on the Big West? Well, they're destroying teams in the Big West, which is exactly what good basketball teams should do. They take care of business. They finish these games early. They haven't played a close game since January. And what they do well, they win the turnover margin, which, as me as a high school basketball coach, that's like so important, because turnovers, A, they often instantly turn into 2 points for the other team, but B, they affect your ability to get off shots. And if you're taking less shots than your opponent, then you have to shoot it significantly better than your opponent. In UC San Diego, they really take care of the ball. Wow. They really force turnovers. They're second in the nation in forced turnovers. And Michigan, the team they're playing in the first round,
is terrible at turning the ball over.
328th in turnover rate. They turn the ball over all the time.
They're really careless.
And then, if it were to be Texas A&M in round 2, I don't really fear them because Texas A&M's calling card is, hey, we're going to throw up a garbage shot and we're going to trust that we can offensive rebound it. I've watched this Texas A&M team or this Texas A&M team enough times to see that strategy. And, Texas A&M is a team that's going to turn it over a lot as well. So I really think that the bracket shaped up really well for UC San Diego in their first NCAA tournament appearance to go all the way to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, it's a smart pick. I like that. All
right, so now let's go ahead. We're about 35 minutes in now, and now let's get to the good stuff. Let's talk Final Four. So to kind of close us out here, probably got another 10, 15 minutes. Let's talk who our Final Four picks are and who our national champion is from there. I will start us off for this one. I was really struggling in the South region. It came down to Auburn and Michigan State for me, and I have Auburn in my Final Four. I just think that what they've done the entire season, yes, they're in a little bit of a slump. Yes, that bracket is not a perfect draw, but I still think they're really good. I think Janai Broome is a problem. I have got Auburn coming out of that South region. Dad, who did you have in the South?
I took Michigan State.
Okay.
And again, not tremendously confident in that one.
Mm-hmm. To me, that was the hardest region.
That was the toughest one. I think I just feel like Izzo's teams have historically performed well in the tournament. And Auburn struggled a little bit of late, and I think you've got a couple teams that could potentially knock them off before that.
Yeah.
I think it's Louisville in the round of 32 potentially, and scroll up again, and you're talking round of 16. UC
like I said, I like UC San Diego there, so I don't think that's super likely.
If Texas A&M was there, that could be a potential.
Yeah,
that could be a potential, but I just not a high degree of confidence on that one. But I'm gonna go with the Spartans.
Okay, so now the West region, who in my opinion has the best crop of the top 4 seeds. Like you look at those top 4 seeds, I think you can make an argument Florida is one of the best, if not the best 1 seed. St. John's one of the best, if not the best 2 seeds. Same deal with Texas Tech as the 3. Same deal with Maryland as the 4. I think Maryland's the best 4 by far. So this is a tough one to pick. I had the Florida Gators coming out of this one. I just think that you look at what they've done recently. They have beaten the best of the best teams in college basketball. They have guard play. They have depth. They have bigs. And I just think that there's no real nits that you can pick for this Florida team. And I really do think that they're going to be going to the Final Four. Do you agree with my Florida pick, or you got somebody else?
Yeah, I picked Florida. I really wanted to pick St. John's.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those, the eye test. Every time I've watched them play, I love the way they play defense.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that number 65 ranking offensively is not something
a good offensive team
you typically see in Final Four teams. And if you look at this bracket, Florida is the only team in the bracket that's top 25 in both offense and defense.
Correct.
They're top 10 in both.
Yeah.
And I think if you go through the contenders, everybody else has got a fatal flaw.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida's metrics are just really good, and they've been playing good basketball. So I just had a hard time picking against them.
Now, I have a feeling we're going to agree on this top right quadrant of the bracket, the East region. I have a feeling we're going to agree on this one. I went with the Duke Blue Devils. I think that Duke, I think you can make the argument that as long as Cooper Flagg's healthy, they are the most complete team in college basketball. I think that they have by far the easiest bracket when you look at who is surrounding them. I don't fear them losing to Mississippi State or Baylor. I don't fear them losing to Oregon or Arizona. We've already seen them blow out Arizona this season. And I don't fear them losing to Wisconsin or Alabama. So I really think Duke is the easy pick there. Do you agree with that one?
Yeah, I don't. Alabama doesn't play defense well enough to beat them. I think Alabama is the only team I would even give a chance of beating. Duke. Grant Nelson would have to be healthy, and they would just have to be on fire from 3.
Yeah, we could We could get news tomorrow that like Grant Nelson's out of the tournament, and that would just make me instantly like want to just sink Alabama. Like,
I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, this Duke team is the number 2 Ken Pom team all time.
yes, since the database has been around, they currently have the second
so
highest rating all time.
It's really hard to pick against them going at least to the Final Four.
Okay, so speaking of the Final Four, the Midwest region, the lower right quadrant of the bracket, Houston is the one. Did you play another 1 seed, or you got somebody different?
I did. I went with Houston.
Okay.
Again, great metrics, great defense. They're older. They're an older team, which you usually see a lot of successful teams that are veteran teams. They could easily have been in the Final Four the last 2 years had it not been for injuries. Probably would have been in the Final Four the last 2 years had it not been for injuries. So, and if you pull them up, they've only lost like one or two. You got their.
I can pull it up.
Pull up their numbers for a second. You noticed 4 losses all year, 3 of them in overtime.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They haven't lost they haven't lost since February 1st, and that one was in overtime. So this calendar year, they're undefeated in regulation,
which in the Big 12 is actually a pretty good accomplishment. That's no scrub conference.
It's a good conference, and there's a lot of arenas that are really tough to play in road games in that arena. So that, it's hard for me to pick against them. They've just been so consistent.
So I went with a different route. I've kind of already hinted at this. I had Gonzaga beating Houston, right? Yeah. And in the bottom half of the bracket, I had Texas making it to the Sweet 16. We've already seen Texas play Tennessee twice. It did not go well for Texas either time, so I have Tennessee in my Elite Eight. Yeah. And I have Gonzaga beating Tennessee. I really think that the Zags, when you look at what they do on the glass with their size, with their offensive ability, I really think that is a team that has the chance to make a Final Four. So when you pull mine together, I'm going to switch it back to the ones I had been picking, right? I have 3 1 seeds and an 8 seed, which is very similar vibes to, I don't know if you remember this Final Four, but 2015, when it was Kentucky, Wisconsin, and Duke as 1 seeds, and then you had Michigan State, the 7 seed. To me, that's kind of how I see this tournament playing out, is I think the 1 seeds are so good. I think you're going to see 1 seed go down, but I really think that it's quite likely that 2 or 3 1 seeds make the Final Four.
I agree. I wouldn't rule out all 4 of them making it.
Okay, so while we've got it on mine, I'll go ahead and finish mine out. I've not told you how this is going to finish for me, right? I did say that I'm feeling very similar vibes to 2015. Do you remember who won that national championship in 2015?
A young Duke team.
It was Duke, because because Wisconsin and Kentucky played an all-time classic game, and Wisconsin used up all their energy, all their luck, all their everything, and didn't have enough left in the tank to beat Duke, right? I could see the same thing happening here, where Duke beats Gonzaga. I've got Florida beating Auburn, but I've got the Florida Gators beating the Duke Blue Devils. I just think Florida, when you look at everything they have, their roster construction, their guard play, the bigs, the coaching, like just everything lines up for Florida. They're so balanced. They're top 10 on both sides of the ball in offensive and defensive efficiency. And they're playing their best basketball this season right now. They're peaking at the right time, just winning that SEC championship. I'm rocking with the Florida Gators for my national champion. So
I'm going Houston.
Okay. Let me flip it back to yours.
I think I think Gonzaga is a tough draw, but I think Houston can take them, and I think that Duke-Houston semifinal is going to be an epic. Florida, I got Florida beating Michigan State, and I'm going to go with Houston.
So we both had Florida in the national championship game. Interesting, and we both had 3 1 seeds in the Final Four. Yeah. So that's just kind of the year that it is shaping up to be, right? Like, I know we've only ever seen all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four one time. It would not shock me for this year to be a repeat of that because of how dominant these 1 seeds are. And so it's not shocking to me that, as we're doing this, we both have pairs of 1 seeds in the national championship game. It does not shock me to see that.
Yeah, it's that first group of 4 is really, really strong. Like you said, you don't usually see 4 teams with metrics like like they've got.
Yeah. Like just and they're all balanced too. Like they're all good on both sides of the ball. Normally, like last year, like Carolina was not that great defensively last year. Like normally you don't like have 4 1 seeds that all don't have weaknesses. And these are 4 that don't really.
Yeah, and I mean they're probably going to be favored by 20. They're probably going to be favored by 30 in the first round.
Yeah,
20 plus in the second round, 15 or so in the Sweet 16, probably 10 to get to the Elite 8. So I mean they're going to be prohibitive. They're going to be prohibitive favorites against everybody they go against.
So to get you a number here, right? So aside from Gonzaga, who's the outlier, every other 8 or 9 seed is at least going to be a 13-point underdog to any of the 1 seeds.
Yeah.
So other than Gonzaga, it really feels like you just pick all the 1 seeds to the Sweet 16 because it doesn't really feel like it's going to be a very likely outcome that they lose.
What's the hypothetical spread between Houston and Gonzaga?
Between Houston and Gonzaga, Houston's a plus 35, Gonzaga's a plus 27. So that would still be an 8-point spread.
8-point spread. Yeah.
Now, granted, if Gonzaga were to blow out Georgia and Houston were to cut it close against SIUE, that might get a little bit closer, but at least an 8-point spread we're looking at. And that's the closest possible combination.
Yeah. And I love Gonzaga, but Georgia's also the last team to beat Florida, aren't they?
That is correct. It was on their home floor, though.
Yeah, it was on their home floor, but they blew a huge lead, as I recall.
Yes.
Like a 26-point lead. Florida caught them, but Georgia came back at the end and beat them. But Gonzaga is definitely the most underseeded team in this tournament.
Honestly, I think they're one of the most underseeded in the last few years. That's why I'm so confident about them, is because like I'm generally a guy who trusts data, and the data is telling me Gonzaga is really good.
Yeah, the top 10. I mean, they're top 10 KenPom.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are our picks. Now, granted, like I said, we're playing in a bracket pool, so not necessarily saying that we're going to keep all these locked in before Thursday, because we are playing in a pool. Might change it up a little bit. I might throw some different teams out there and try to get myself some leverage. But reminder: if you do want to join us in the bracket pool, reach out to me on some form of social media, or even text if you're somebody who has my phone number. So that way we can get you in this bracket pool. We got it pretty big last year. Looking to have it pretty big again this year. It's a fun time. And then also, if you are new to the YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe so that we can come back, because we're going to be talking daily fantasy bets, player props for the first round tomorrow night. So, make sure you're subscribed so you can be here for that. But we're going to have coverage all the way up through the national championship game on that Monday night in April. But Dad, that wraps up our bracket breakdown show. So Dad, we've got an interesting scenario here Wednesday night, which we're going to be at, right? So we're getting to see my team in your team's arena because Texas is playing in Dayton. So how are you looking forward to going and seeing an NCAA tournament game in your own gym?
I'm going to see it. I will say this. I wish it was the one 5 years ago with Boise and Dayton.
Oh, that was a good one too.
Dayton fans say that was the loudest that arena ever was. But this one's going to be fun because a lot of Dayton fans show up for the first 4 typically. And Dayton people don't like Xavier. I don't know if anybody knows the history, but they were rivals in the Atlantic 10, and Xavier moved on to the Big East, and every time Dayton has lobbied to get in the Big East, Xavier's blocked them. So
that's crazy to me.
I think there's going to be a lot of people in that arena rooting for Texas.
I hope so. I don't want it to be a pro Xavier crowd.
Yeah, it'll be pro Xavier, but I think it'll be enough. There'll be enough Dayton fans rooting for Texas to make it interesting.
Well, another thing that I kind of love too is like these first 4 games kind of get a little bit like almost like shoved under the table sometimes. Yeah. There has been some really good first 4 games over the years.
Oh yeah.
Like the one you mentioned with Dayton and Boise, that was an outstanding basketball game. There was one a few years back with Notre Dame and Rutgers that was incredible as well. Like there's just even if Texas loses, if we go in and we see a great college basketball game in an electric environment, it'll just be a good time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very close, fun to watch game. Looking forward to it.
Now, what I have to do beforehand is I need to do my research on Mount St. Mary's and American and figure out who I'm going to be rooting for in that game. Because I know very minimal about both those teams because Mount St. Mary's was on one DraftKings slate. So I know a few of their guys, but not much after that. I do know that Mount St. Mary's, fun fact, they have a guy on their team whose first name and last name are other teams in the NCAA tournament field. They have a player on their team named Xavier Lipscomb.
Oh, wow.
That's uncanny. And I
I
don't think
thought
there's another.
Shirley Drake was going to be one of those names.
Yeah, I don't know how many other names you could possibly have that combination for that would work. I guess maybe Bryant.
Drake,
Or,
Bryant.
yeah, or maybe a guy whose name is actually Robert Morris.
Yeah.
Maybe. All right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Dad, absolutely enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on. I love that we do this every year. It's a great tradition, and I hope that everybody watching and listening got all the information they need to have success with the bracket. Dad, as always, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there, y'all. Best of luck to you guys in the bracket. Enjoy this NCAA tournament. Enjoy March Madness. It's one of the best times of the year, especially this weekend. And, like I said, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that we can be with us for the rest of our content through the rest of the tournament. But that's going to wrap up this episode. Best of luck to you guys. See everybody next time.
Take care.